Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. This is episode 234 of the BJJBrick Podcast. Today we're talking about what you need to know and what is good to know on kind of jiu-jitsu concepts. My name is Byron. I'm here with my two good buddies, two guys who have been working at McDowell's for a little too long. They've also resorted to stick fighting with mops in the downtime, and they actually stopped a burglary once or twice. Pretty impressive guys. But I've got Gary and Joe here with me today. Gentlemen, how's it going?
We're just got done mop fighting, and Joe's technique is solid. He's showing me a couple new moves. Stir the monkey he showed me this morning, and we're going to try that next time somebody tries to rob McDowell's.
Just like Gary said, man, we're training hard, doing some stick fighting, getting in better shape every day, getting ready to put out some instructional DVDs to go along with the techniques we're developing.
Nice. I'm guessing neither one of you has seen the movie Coming to America.
Oh, yeah, we have. McDowell's.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. We've seen it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. What do you think? We've been locked up for,
I don't know. I thought
20,
maybe you had something to work
years?
with on that one.
No, Joe and I, we have not been locked up more than 5 years at a time. So we haven't had a really bad, sentence.
There you go.
Well, there's TV in the joint anyway.
Yeah, it's just we don't get to watch McDowell's. They don't give us any movies.
No, but you guys work there.
Yes.
Who got You guys sold all your fancy clothes and stuff and started dressing like normal people, like myself, I guess, and really helping you fit in with the society that you're living in.
Normal dressing like yourself? Have you looked in the mirror, Byron?
Yeah, I have jeans, I guess that counts.
You had MC Hammer pants on this morning.
I had what?
MC Hammer pants on this morning when you showed up to the workout.
Well, you know what time it is, Gary.
It's hammer time.
It's time to talk about Health IQ. I'm going to throw that in there real quick here. Our sponsor this week is Health IQ. They are a life insurance company that looks for people who are living a fit and active lifestyle, and they'll save you a bunch of money, or they definitely could. You have to kind of look into that yourself. Go online. There'll be a link in the show notes. Take their test, their little quiz that they have. See if you qualify for lower rates. Basically, think of it like car insurance. If you're a good driver, you pay less than the bad drivers. Think about the extreme opposites. If you are a terrible driver, your rates go through the roof. We don't really have that for life insurance. At least we didn't have that. Now we do. If you take care of yourself and you're in good shape and really it looks like you're going to live longer than the average bear out there, don't eat at McDowell's too much, Health IQ could be the place for you to save a bunch of money on your life insurance. They want those type of customers. They're able to give you lower rates because of that healthy lifestyle. Check them out. There's a link in the show notes. Take their quiz, see if you qualify, and talk to an agent today. And don't eat at McDowell's so much. I mean, that's just, they have a very limited amount of options that aren't bad for you.
Look, me and the McDonald's people, we got this little misunderstanding. See, they're McDonald's. I'm McDowell's. Huh? They got the golden arches. Mine is the golden arcs. Now, see, they got the Big Mac. I got the Big Mick. We both got 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, and onions. But they use a sesame seed bun. My buns have no seeds.
Why do you keep trashing where Joe and I work?
Yeah, if you eat at McDowell's, it's fine because we have a training program. Just come around the back, grab a mop.
We'll keep you in shape.
The biggest problem with these guys is they complain about the bath facilities aren't the same as they once were in their home land.
Well, I mean, we're royalty. What do you expect?
I'm not going to give you guys the treatment you guys got at home. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But we did have a good time last night at the Knicks game.
All right. In case you're maybe from the generation or two lower than newer than us. We're referring to a movie called Coming to America. Check it out. It's definitely kind of a classic. And who do we have? Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy.
There's like 9 different people in that movie.
Yep, and Arsenio Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And Byron will have a link to it in the show notes.
Yep, and you might even see Gary make a guest appearance. I know Joe's in there for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, not really. I don't know where you guys would have fit in that movie. What do we have for the quote this week, guys?
Ask 5 economists, and you'll get 5 different answers. 6 if one went to Harvard. And that's Edgar Fiedler. And we're not here to make fun of anybody that went to Harvard or Princeton or any other college. But you can take that to jiu-jitsu and say, ask 5 black belts and get 5 different answers. What do y'all think of that, Byron?
I think that's good. And it's, we're not, the quote comes from kind of a joke, but really, ask 5 experts, and sometimes you get 5 different answers. So I think in a lot of martial arts, you look at the black belt as somebody who knows the answer to things. And in jiu-jitsu, that's not the case. And I think in a lot of other martial arts, that's also not the case, but it can be presented that way sometimes. Go ask one black belt, hey, how can I fix this problem? They might have you doing something that avoids that problem. Another one might help show you something to help get you out of that problem. Another one might show you a counter to that problem. All good answers, and really it's going to depend on what you're wanting to do and which one works best for you. But there are a lot of solutions to different things and a lot of different answers. And because one black belt told you to do this one time, doesn't mean that that's the answer you need to carry with you forever. We're all on kind of a personal journey, and there's a lot of different answers out there.
Yeah, and I like asking different people the same question and getting different answers. And, I can work all those different options into my game or find one that really fits perfect to my game. But, as Joe was talking about this quote, it made me think of this morning. Byron and I rolled this morning, and Byron brought his wife to roll, and I was rolling with Byron's wife, and we were kind of working on stuff. And I showed her a way to do something, and she's like, that's not the way Byron does it. And, that's, yeah, I mean, you teach her a lot there. And, I just thought about it, and it goes perfectly to this. But the big thing I was telling her, I was like, I can't wait till you catch Byron in this variation. So
Nice.
Hopefully soon, Byron, you'll be tapping out to a different Kimura setup. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen.
It's actually, she's telling me it's a double inverted Kimura. Is that right?
Byron, I'm 51 years old. I don't think I can invert.
No, the arm is inverted, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, arms inverted. That's what we're looking for.
No, that's a good example. A little different dynamic there, but I really like it when my wife gets input from other people and help, and she doesn't hold the things I've told her as absolute truth to jiu-jitsu, because it's not. I'm just trying to help guide her and help her discover her own game. And if somebody like Gary or Craig or anybody at Fox Fitness gives her advice, that usually lands pretty good, and she's pretty receptive to that. Even if it doesn't really go with what I've been showing her, she's got to learn other stuff from jiu-jitsu, not just my game.
Yeah, and I think that's why she's so good. Like, I haven't rolled with her in a while there. You always hog mat time with her. And but basically, I've been watching you guys on the side a lot. And, she gets basically a private from you all every week when I'm there. But just watching how much her game has improved, she's open to stuff. And even today when, I was showing stuff to her, it's like, hey, she just figured it out real quick and work it into her game. And that's why she approves so much. She not afraid to take other people's advice, not afraid to ask 5 black belts and get 5 different answers. So that's awesome.
So can you guys think of a time when you were given advice from what was a good source and it didn't really work out for you, so you found advice, maybe another source, or you found your own way eventually?
Byron, I can think of, learning takedowns and learning a basic double leg, single leg, but not having my head on the inside, learning it from a wrestler. It's not necessarily a black belt, but a, higher level wrestler. and having my head out on the outside led to me, getting caught in, guillotines, getting my neck caught. I just think it's, different sports. But, that has happened to me the first time somebody was really working on takedowns with me.
Yeah, and so when you were shown a different way, you didn't say, this is the way I've learned it, is the way it needs to be. It's okay to try things out.
Yeah, I don't think I've really ever been that way.
Yeah.
Just one way is the highway. I'm never afraid to ask anybody. I'll ask anybody. I ask people on the street, just regular random Joes. But, I don't know. I just think getting advice from as many people as possible. I've got a good buddy, Shimani Mutombi, who always told me there's more than one way to skin a warthog. And, there's more than one way to do so many different things, so many different moves. One person may pass this way, one person may pass another way. And the more I know, the more I'm exposed to, the more questions I ask, the more different paths and avenues I get, the more I'm going to learn, the better I'm going to be.
You ask random Joes, you can ask our Joe.
You could ask a specific Joe. Yeah,
that's
Joe,
a specific Joe.
Joe, can I ask you some questions?
Anytime, man.
Thank you. You're a good man.
So, Byron, I have an answer to your question.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know actually if it answers your question. I can't think of a specific time where I've gotten advice and had to go someplace else to get different advice and get on the right path. But, I split my training time fairly evenly between two different schools, and they could not be more different in the way that the schools are run, the bulk of the techniques that are taught. One school puts much more emphasis on strength and conditioning and being strong and athletic. And so I routinely go from a specific type of training to a different type. And I find that my game has developed into something probably in between these two schools. And I never, I'm like Gary, I'll never go visit a school or be at one gym and say, well, that's not the way, Professor Fernando teaches it. But I just kind of take the two and I mix them together. And that's how I guess where my game's coming from.
Hey, Joe, one thing I wanted to mention, like you said, you train at two different schools. What I thought was really cool, I think it was maybe last night, maybe I saw on Facebook that you posted a picture of you at practice. You're not getting ready for a competition like the rest of your teammates are, and you showed up late on a Friday night, and everybody's working hard, and you took a little time off or whatever. And I forgot what your quote was, but it's like, hey, the old guy trying to train with a bunch of these young guys who are getting ready for a competition on a Friday night or something. But what I thought was really cool, it's not really talking about what you were just talking about, but going down the path of talking about schools, like a couple of guys from your school that were, the young guys that were training, they all chimed in. It's like, hey, Joe, man, so glad you could make it. Thanks for stopping by. And, I just remember it was like you didn't have the energy or something, and you felt like you didn't really really push those guys, but they were all so happy that you came by, said you pushed them. And I just remember reading that, the quotes, not the quotes, but the replies from the guys that, you train with, the young guys. And I just started thinking, man, that's got to be an awesome school. Those guys are top-notch training partners, top-notch people to have those guys having your back like you do.
Yeah, they really are. I wouldn't train at a place that didn't have that type of vibe. I'd look for a place that did.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, Joe, me and Byron live in one area. Joe lives in another area, and we actually haven't even met yet. But that'll be coming up a little bit later. We will meet at the BJJ weekend, and maybe we should just get to it now.
June 23rd and 24th.
Yep, June 23rd, June 24th, Wichita, Kansas. 23rd, we have seminars from Rolly Delgado, who has been on the show. Rolly is just an incredible grappler, former UFC fighter. We have Tim Sled. Tim Sled has been on the show numerous times. Tim Sled is just incredible. What an all-star cast of Rolly and Tim on the 23rd. Was that again, Byron?
23rd will be Rolly and Tim. And Tim is Andre Galvo black belt, and he's very good at teaching and explaining things in jiu-jitsu. So don't miss Saturday. Sunday is the BjjBrick team. It's going to be the three of us teaching a little jiu-jitsu, having some good times on the mat, and just kind of a big jiu-jitsu party that day. 2-day event, maybe even a little bit on Friday, the day before, maybe an open mat. I know I'm not going to be able to make it to that one, but big, the first ever BJJ event. We're bringing Joe up here, and you are welcome as well. So book your plane tickets or carpool with some buddies. If you are traveling, let me know in advance, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and I'll try to help you with any accommodations and make sure you have a great time while you're here. We want to make it worth your time. So we'll definitely be having a good time on and off the mat, my friends.
Well, it is the vacation destination of the U.S., so I'm looking forward to being there and good times.
Yep, it'll be the BJJ capital of the world that weekend.
The only thing Wichita does not have, and sorry for Joe, is a McDowell's. We do not have a McDowell's, but maybe we can build one when Joe gets here. Maybe we can build it in the weekend. We can build it with the bricks.
There you go, man. This is all coming together really nicely.
We would just make a stable foundation.
And likely Joe and Gary that Sunday will be demonstrating some stick fighting with mops, and they could even sweep you off your feet. And these guys are phenomenal with that. Mentioning demonstrations, man, that's a heck of a segue there. Forgot to mention our off the mat lesson. I was downtown with my wife, and wouldn't you know it, they have, it's one of those things, everybody's walking into one direction. What's going on over there? They had a women's fair. Well, okay. I don't think that they'll kick me out. So we actually went. Speaker? What was that?
Were you the guest speaker?
I had to shave my beard, and I went in drag, and nobody knew.
Oh, that's a beard?
Yeah. Anyway, so we go and we're checking things out, and they have a self-defense demonstration and talk put on by the police department here, and it was pretty good, and they showed a lot of things, and really at the end of it, they opened it up for Q&A, and it was amazing how bad the questions were. Like one woman asked, what if somebody or a couple guys are threatening me with a knife? It's like, she wanted to know how to fight that off. It's like, you're not going to fight that off. If they want your money, give them your money. If they want you, you have to, there's nothing he could tell you in the next 4 minutes that's going to make a difference in that. But, and then the other one was like, now what if I'm in a headlock? It's just like, people have no idea what combat sports, what fighting, what martial arts are actually like unless they do them. And thinking about this, kind of relating this to us and what we do, if you're a white belt and you've been training for 2 months, you're likely, unless your whole family trains, the jiu-jitsu expert in your circle off the mat, whether that's at work or in your family. If you're the only one that trains, you're the expert. They're coming to you with any questions they have and any insight. So it doesn't really matter that you've only trained for a little while. You represent that expert to them. And, it's like they could ask, 5 different black belts and get 5 different answers. They could ask you, but at least they have somebody. And your answer might ultimately be, well, come in and check out a class. Or, you seem to be having several questions. I'd be happy to help you, but, in this environment would be more conductive to learning. I was just surprised with how these little old ladies had questions about fighting, and they really had no idea of what it would actually be like, and how bad it can go. Like, what if a guy tries to steal my purse? Well, let him have your purse. You don't want to get hurt for what's in your purse. And I don't know. I was just shocked by some of the ideas that they had, and sure. A lot of the self-defense was like, kick him in the groin as hard as you can, or, quickly go for the eyes, hit him in the throat. These things to try to immediately disable somebody or just put somebody, to make them take a step back, right away. A lot of the advice was good practical stuff about being aware and not going to bad places and, at bad times and that sort of thing. But the questions that they asked were just, they weren't on the same page at all. A lot of the women anyway. And that's why I'm always happy to see self-defense things taught by people who are good at teaching them and don't give that false sense of security when it comes to it. They I don't know. Any thoughts, guys? I was just shocked when I saw some of these questions. These little ladies wanting to know, how to how to fight really well and learn this over a conversation.
Well, I think part of that's due to the age we live in with multimedia, and there's all kinds of videos floating around of supposed experts showing you how to bob and weave and disarm someone with a gun, and saw one recently with a lady that was showing how to disarm two men who had a gun pointed at you. and so people get this idea that some of this might be possible, and it's just ridiculous. You like that one, huh, Gary?
Man, that just makes me laugh there. But, like what Joe says, a lot of that's ridiculous. But Joe and I have a self-defense video with mops. And that's why everywhere we go, we carry mops. So definitely a mop is longer than a knife. So a mop, we don't use mops against guns, right, Joe? We use them against knives.
Correct.
Yep. So we have no BS in our video.
There you go. That's good. I think that kind of wraps up the ever so important first third of the show. And I'll just quickly explain. This is the last episode of the month. It's been a great month. We're glad you guys have been with us through the month. But at the end of the month, we do a topic episode where we don't really have a guest. We just cover a topic with a little bit more depth. And we bat it around a little bit and see where it goes. But this month, what do we have, gentlemen?
This month we're talking about what you need to know versus what's good to know. I mean, there's a ton of positions you can play from. And there's, excuse me, guys, a ton of techniques you can use. And if you try and master everything at once, you're going to be really thin. You're not going to get it. So you sort of have to prioritize, what do I need to know? And then what's good to know that I can work on later. How's that sound, guys?
And that sounds great. Let's break this down in a couple different categories. Let's talk about somebody who's pretty new at jiu-jitsu, first month-ish. What would be like a luxury item to know versus what do you really need to know in that first month?
I think probably the first thing you need to know is some of the basic movements that you're going to use in jiu-jitsu. I don't think shrimping and bridging can be overemphasized. I think you have to start to understand what the more basic positions are. I think that's a need-to-know item. I think actually being able to lock up a Kimura when you're just a couple months in is sort of one of those luxury, might be good to know. You might want to start working on it, but I don't think it's as important as some of the other things.
Joe, I really agree with you on the bridging, the shrimping. And, I know when I first started, I was doing a ton of bridging, a ton of shrimping. And it just forms a foundation for everything we do. Shrimping just comes in handy, forward shrimping, backward shrimping. It's going to create space. It's going to get you out of some bad positions. Bridging, same thing. It's going to get you out of some positions. It's going to allow you to reverse. It may not be a fancy move or anything, but it's just basic body positioning, basic body movements that is going to serve huge, dividends in the future.
Yeah, and there's some other things that may not be performance-wise that you need to know. How to buy a gi, what kind of gi to get, how to take care of it so you're not the smelly person in the room. There's usually a smelly person, and if you can't find that person, a good chance it's you.
I never thought about that, Byron. When I was talking about, thinking of good to know versus need to know, I was just thinking of moves and positions. But yeah, buying a gi, what's a good gi to get? How to wash it? Should you hang dry it? Should you put it in the washing machine? Same thing with your rash guards, your grappling shorts. Even just the basic stuff of, keeping your toenails, your fingernails cleaned. Not smelling, putting deodorant on, is washing. Staying away if you have impetigo, ringworm, you're sick, making sure you're off the mats. Like those things are huge to know.
One of the things that will get me to stop rolling and have a conversation with somebody is if they do either a light tap or a tap on the mat that's not forced, as in they're able to tap on me, but they choose to tap on the mat like it's the same thing. Both those, okay, clearly they're tapping, so we stopped rolling, but then we're not rolling anymore for the next couple of seconds. I'm going to talk to them. And the conversation goes, hey, when you're tapping, we all tap in here all the time. It's not a big deal. It's not like you're you're losing or you're it's not a big deal. Really, you're tapping for your own safety. This could be without tapping. This could be very dangerous pretty much right away. And tapping is what keeps us safe. So don't tap and be shy about it or embarrassed about it. Don't tap lightly and hope that I feel it. Tap with some intention and make sure that I know that you're tapping. And if you have to tap on the mat, that's okay. But you need to tap loud enough to where I hear it. And you could also say tap or stop. And I'll be anticipating these things to be happening. But if you're tapping me lightly and I don't feel it because we're moving fast or something like that, or you're tapping on the mat and I don't hear it and I don't see it, you're really risking your own safety. And I want you to tap with clear intention of getting me to stop, because I want to stop and not injure you. And I don't know how flexible you are or how you're feeling at the moment, but this is an important deal. So when you tap, make sure that the person gets the message. It's your safety that's on the line, and I don't want to hurt anybody. And that's basically the conversation that has, and it's not necessarily that deep or in-depth. I probably over-explained it, but it takes 10, 15 seconds, and then we're back to rolling, and hopefully they got the message through. That's something that you need to know. You need to know how to keep yourself safe while on the mat. That might be just clear intentions of tapping, or maybe who you shouldn't be rolling with, and you'll learn that maybe by talking to people or by getting one bad roll, and hey, I stopped halfway through because that was too much for me anyway.
Byron, I got kind of a little story on that.
Oh, boy.
Well, actually, today I had a guy I was rolling with who was visiting from Germany. He listens to the show, and he happens to be in, as Joe calls it, the vacation capital of the world, Wichita, Kansas. And, I was talking to him. He said the first time he ever got rear naked choked, and he hadn't been training very long, somebody had his arms trapped. His feet were, he said he was locked up, so he couldn't even move his feet. The guy had the guillotine or a rear naked choke in really tight, so tight that he couldn't yell tap, and he couldn't do anything but just go to sleep. And that's it was probably not your first submission hold you've been put in, and you don't even get a chance to tap. That's got to be a scary time to be put in that position. And
that's okay. I blame the person entirely who did the choke.
I do too. Yeah, I do on that one.
That's a bad deal. If it's a new person, which it was at the time, and you're rolling with them, you should know if they are close to tapping. You should also be observant enough to know if they're having a hard time being able to tap, if their arms are pinned or in a weird position, if they can't talk. These are all a big deal. And you shouldn't be putting out opponents because they don't have the ability to tap. Definitely shouldn't be choking new people unconscious. I feel like that shouldn't have to be said, but it is, I guess.
I thought the same thing when I heard that. I just couldn't believe that, maybe the person was new too and just happened to get in a great position and was just overzealous. But, I know if Joe gets me in that position and everything's tied up, I can't talk, I can't move, and Joe knows he's going to put me to sleep. He's going to let it go and let me live to fight another day.
For sure, by the time I see your feet start to twitch, I'm going to let up.
What he does is just like pro wrestling. He holds my arm up to see if, the first time it falls down, he puts my arm up again, it stays up, and I start waving it around, and then Joe knows I'm okay.
There you go.
Or if you smell urine, it's probably time to cut back and let it breathe a little bit.
Well, that's kind of normal if you're rolling with me.
Yeah, like I said, the smelly guy. The leaky guy. I think there's a lot here that that you need to know pretty early on, but it's kind of like watching a kid explore the whole world and learning how to talk, learning what foods are good, and learning faces and who's friendly and this sort of thing. There's just so much you don't even realize that you're learning stuff, and the first month or week or so may seem like you're learning nothing, but really you're probably soaking up a lot more than you realize.
Yeah, and then I guess the bar changes as you progress. What you need to know as a new blue belt's going to be far more extensive than what we just talked about. And then what you need to know when you're black belt's going to be even more extensive, I expect.
I tell people, offense, you can pick whatever you want. It's nice if you have you work from that core of stuff that is maybe in the top percentage of moves that actually people could pull off, opposed to some little quirky thing that one guy pulled off on a couple of tournaments, and now you're working on that and not having much luck with it. But you want to work with the, from the back, rear naked choke, bow and arrow choke, and armbar. I mean, those are pretty solid things. Now, if you're fiddling around with, I don't know, a wrist lock or something like that, there should be a reason for that. But that's valid too, and that might really open up other doors for you. But I think staying within the core of techniques that have been like time tested, you can never go wrong with that.
Yeah, I would agree. And we've talked before that you kind of have to have a minimum of 2 or 3 moves from each position. I would say that when you get more than 3 or 4 moves, you're going from that need to know to good to know. So, yeah, if you got three submissions you can pull off from the back, or 2 submissions and a transition back to mount, that's kind of have to know. You got to have at least that many tools. More than that, you're getting into good to know.
Hey, guys, I want to ask you a question about, we always talk about knowing a couple moves from each position. Let's say we're in side mount, knowing a choke, knowing a Kimura. But, the one thing it seems like a lot of people don't talk about is knowing escapes. I think that's something we definitely need to know. Escapes from arm bars, or maybe even not necessarily escapes, but not putting yourself in that position. Try to, if somebody gets your back, you're shrugging your shoulders, you're tucking your chin, you're trying to roll to a side to escape. Just basic positioning too. It seems like we talk about offense so much and defense gets neglected. And I think that's something, that we're going to be putting in a lot of defensive positions when we're first starting.
Gary, it sounds to me like you're sort of describing the fundamentals. Like you have to know to keep your elbows in, protect. Yeah. From those bad positions, you have to know those things. I would agree.
Yeah. And that was one thing when I first started. I remember, I was so new. I would always get in somebody's guard, and I would just reach constantly. And I would get arm barred, left and right, whatever side they wanted, whatever arm they wanted to take, it was there for the taking. And I just remember it kept on for like a month, and, my elbows were really hurting at that point. But it took one guy. It was a blue belt. Back in the day, there were no such thing as blue belts around. And he came to visit. He's from Kansas City and came down to train, and somebody I really looked up to. And I just asked him a question, and he's like, "Don't you realize you're reaching?" And I had no clue I was reaching. And he just said, "Hey, T-Rex arms." And ever since then, I've been in a lot better shape, and my elbows don't hurt as bad. But just one little thing, somebody just explaining it to you in a way that you understand can definitely make a big difference.
Yeah, that day I couldn't armbar carry anymore. I think, you could look at this idea of escapes a couple different ways. I mean, learning an armbar escape versus learning how to not be in that position. And, you're going to be in people's guards. But let's just say, do you want to learn escape from side control or escape from the 30 different submissions that they have to try from side control? And I think that they're both valid. And, if somebody starts to do a darce, you need to know the appropriate reaction you need to do. If they start to grab your collar or start to try to turn you or isolate an arm, you need to know what to do. But I think time well spent learning how to get out of that position safely without exposing yourself and quickly, so they don't have unlimited time to just throw the book at you and find one that confuses you. Because I get there, it's like, man, okay, I'm getting a bit confused. They've got this part of my gi wrapped around that part of my body, and it appears to be going around my wrist and part of my neck as well. Like, what is going on here? And usually when you get confused, it's a little too late. And if you're able to escape the position first and stay safe and build a frame or keep your arms and hands inside the right at all times in a safe way, and then escape, I think that you won't have to find yourself busting out of a bunch of submissions. You bust out of the position first, and that should help you.
It goes back to like what Joe said at the very start. Learning your bridging, learning your shrimping. Let's say I'm in side control and I want to get the underhook. I'm going to bridge to grab that underhook, and maybe I'll shuck out that way. Or I'll shrimp right off the bat and recapture guard. And that goes back to the very first 2 fundamentals Joe talked about. It's going to keep me out of some bad positions and allow me to recover.
Yeah, this is good stuff that help us all understand, different concepts. And I definitely remember times when I've been frustrated. Like a good matchup with Gary. if Gary like sets up a Kimura from side control, he'll probably going to finish it on me. So I could spend time, and it would be well spent, talking to Gary and working on getting out of the Kimura, or I could spend time getting a better side control escape, and Gary's Kimura won't work as effectively, but nobody's side control will work as effectively on me either. And I think that they're both important, but one of them is kind of a bigger tool that you could work with. But man, I should spend some time with Gary working on my Kimura's defense.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question. When if you get put on your back, either in a fight or in a jiu-jitsu match, obviously playing a guard is better than being stuck in side control or any other bad bottom position. So from a playing guard perspective, what are need to know versus good to know in that regards? I mean, there's 15 different guards and 30 different variations of each one. So what are your thoughts on that?
I just think you need to learn a couple different guards. If you're new, I put closed guard on that list. Yeah. And if you're not new, I guess closed guard probably still on the list. But I'm a big butterfly guard guy. I definitely respect the gi guards, and they hit me hard some days. I don't play a lot of guards that involve the gi specifically because my training is half gi and half no gi, and I tend to work on a couple different things at a time, but I want to work on them throughout the week, and it just doesn't lend itself to working on, I guess, a gi guard. But, if that's what you're working on, that's fine. Pick a couple options and really float around a little bit and see which ones transition. If you're working your closed guard, people tend to pass and get involved in your half guard, which they just slice right through. Maybe half guard would be a good thing to work on. If it's maybe a transitional thing, maybe not by choice. If everybody's passing your guard, but you're able to kind of catch a butterfly hook before they do, maybe work on butterfly or recovery from there. It's going to be kind of personal, but I think most of the guards are pretty good if you work them.
I agree. I think one thing to keep in mind is that some guards are more effective against an opponent that's trying to smash you and ground and pound if you're in a fight, or pass low and heavy, and some are more effective against guys that are standing over you. So I agree that you don't need all 15 guards, but I think you need to at least have an answer for both of those scenarios. So maybe you have closed guard and butterfly guard. Those are sort of both controlling a low and aggressive opponent. So if you're going to add a third one, maybe it needs to be like a De La Riva or an X guard or something to deal with the guy standing over you.
Yeah, and I think I think closed guard is something that sometimes gets thrown away. It seems like everybody's just working on crazy moves, but I think closed guard is so important. But then I still think stuff in closed guard, breaking the posture, overhooks to control that posture, and then let's say we're working a little self-defense, bicep control to stop the strike, stuff like that. I think is very important to know there too. I know we talked about self-defense a little bit earlier too.
Yeah, that's a good kind of example to break this down by positions. Guards. Let's just say we have mount position. What is need to know? What is just kind of nice to know?
From the top?
Yeah.
Well, I think the basics of controlling the position are first and foremost grapevining the legs, basing out with your hands, even using your head if necessary, transitioning high-low guard, technical mount. I think all that movement and the basics of holding the position is the first thing you got to focus on.
Yeah, I think that is so important. It's a position that is so dominant, you don't want to give it up. It's such a bad position for the guy on the bottom. You want to know how to keep that position, how to make that person uncomfortable. As Joe said, moving from low to high, high to low, depending on what you need. But, as you move high, you're taking their arms out of their game. And, you'll set your submissions up based off of your positions. But I would totally agree with Joe. I think really working that position, locking your guy down, being heavy to make that person uncomfortable, moving around depending on where you need to go. And I think it's the position is the most important, keeping that position, stabilizing yourself so you don't get rolled.
Yep. And, I think the importance of having these conversations is so that we can learn things and put them into practice. And so your practice when you're training should be, if you're not really proficient at the mount position, when you get it in a sparring match, that your focus is holding that position. I can't count how many times I've rolled with white belts. They get the mount position and they can't wait to go for that arm bar, and it gives you the easiest reversal. You end up on top, and it's like you're not really accomplishing anything training that way. So, yeah, understanding what's important, what's a need to know, and then focus on that when you're rolling.
Yeah, that can be looked at a couple of ways, but I agree, Joe. It's funny rolling with the white belt, new white belt, because, you know, when they get up there and they have a little bit of time, I think this mistake goes away, but they give them out. They have them out. You know, we've been working hard for 2 minutes. They're almost exhausted. They end up with a mount. Boom, they pull the trigger on the arm bar, and I don't really feel like getting my arm yanked on by a white belt, so I yank it out or I get out of this. And now they're on their back, exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, you know, okay, let's just imagine you held that mount for 30 seconds and you got a chance to take a breath. That would have been nice. You didn't do that. You know, but the other perspective is, your armbar is not going to be good unless you learn what a bad armbar is, or you try it a couple times and they get out how to tighten it up. So there's both. You need to do a few bad arm bars before you start tightening them up to really figure out what's happening there. But holding mount is definitely a skill that you're not going to get unless you actually hold the mount and work on that position. If you can hold somebody in mount and they're struggling and they're trying hard to escape, you're doing some stuff right, and that's just as good as, you know, pulling off a correct arm bar, holding somebody in a tight spot where they're trying to escape. That's an important skill in jiu-jitsu.
And you're probably going to get the arm bar. You have a lot better chance to get it if you hold them in that position. You put some pressure on them. You take their arm, you know, push their arms up high, you know, with your knees. They're going to make a mistake, and you'll have a better chance of pulling off a successful arm bar.
Another thing that I think is, maintaining position, I think, is pretty much a need to know thing. You need to know how to keep that. Drawing somebody out is kind of maybe I don't know where you get to categorize that. Being able to make them make a mistake, or just using your body to get their arms exposed or their neck exposed, just to make it happen. They might not need to give that to you, but it's such a dominant position. You're using all of your major muscle groups. You can make an arm come out of where it should be and work on it from there. Where would drawing somebody out and making opportunities fit into the need to know versus good to know?
Joe, I would kind of think that would almost be in the good to know. I think that's getting a little more advanced. If we're talking about a person, 0 to 3 months, I'm more looking at stabilizing the position, getting, working on that arm bars till it gets less crappy, till it gets better. But I just think sometimes just setting your opponent up to go down a path they don't want to go, I don't know. I just think that might just be a little too advanced at that point. I think that might be good to know, or good to know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would agree, Gary. Maybe when you get to blue belt, that becomes a need to know kind of thing. Eventually, it's a need to know because it's part of the efficiency of jiu-jitsu. You don't want to attack the arm when it's at its strongest position if you can easily manipulate it into a weaker position first.
Yeah, good point, Joe. Great point.
Now, from escapes from the mount, things haven't gone so well for you. You end up on bottom in mount. Need to know versus good to know. Maybe one less of a like technique, but definitely very important is if you have the idea of what they're trying to do from this position. If they're in that mode when they're just holding you, you could react a little differently. If they're actively attacking your neck or your arms, if you know this, you're able to respond more appropriately than the person who is like suddenly shocked. Oh man, they just threw an arm out of nowhere. Actually, you should have been able to predict that because they had a really nice setup and they really forced your arm out of position before they went for it. But so from the bottom, need to know, good to know. What do we have here, gentlemen?
I still think it goes back to the very first stuff Joe said. Need to know, bridging, shrimping, not extending your arms. very basic stuff, but so very important, in that position when you're on the bottom.
Yeah, I would also add when we're getting to bad bottom positions, it's probably more bottom side control, but it started to understand frames and how to build them, how to make them strong. A lot of people miss the part of the puzzle where something needs to be connected into the mat. It's to finish the frame. So that you're not taking the brunt of your opponent's weight and pressure all the time.
Joe, that's a really good point, and I do think a lot of people miss the frame. And just coming from my own perspective, as Byron knows, I use a lot of half guard. And, sometimes I'm just lazy and I let people pass. And, I forget about frame. And I'd been watching some Tom DeBlas videos and, half guard videos, and he was really talking about framing. And so the next day I got on the mat, I just concentrated on frames. And you would not believe the people who, would pass my guard were really struggling to pass my guard. And the only thing I did was concentrate on framing, make sure, I had a good, strong frame. And sometimes like myself, I had forgot the basics. I wasn't paying as much attention to the frame as I should have been, and really changed my game once I went back to the basics and really thought about it when I was in that position.
Yeah, something else I would add, from bottom positions, it's critical that you have answers. From top positions, if you're not doing real great at side control, you can transition to north and south. You can try knee on belly. You can try transitioning to the mount. But when you're stuck in bottom, those choices have to an extent been taken away from you. So whatever position you're in, like bottom mount, you have to know a legitimate escape from there, at least one that you're going to be work on so that you can get out of that position.
Yeah, and that will help with your frustration as well. If you're in a position where you have no clue what to do, of course that's frustrating. But if you have something you could at least work on, at least you're trying to do something. It may not work. I think there's a lot of value in having just two escapes, because then you get something to alternate from. If you're just going to try to shrimp all day, I could prevent that. But when you try to shrimp and then get up, or maybe try to roll me or another alternative, it becomes much more difficult to prevent you from escaping. More than just twice as difficult if you're doing two things 3 or 4 times. It's hard to do the math sometimes with this, but Gary's the math guy. How much more difficult is it to stop somebody who's doing 2 escapes versus just the one, Gary?
17%, Byron.
I have an easy fallback. Exponentially.
Very, very impressive, Joe.
Oh, that's a big word too.
Yep. Joe's student of the month.
But no, Byron's right. If you're from an offensive standpoint, if somebody's attacking me with 1 move, not difficult. 2 moves, maybe it's 3 or 4 times as difficult.
Or 3, exponentially.
Or that's what exponentially is, right? Then 3 is more, and the more attacks they throw at you, the further behind you're going to get.
We should, it'd be kind of funny to do like a word of the day, or I guess a word of the week, where we bring in some non-jujitsu word and have people try to use it. I don't think exponentially is that crazy of a word, but
we actually do that at work. We'll have like a phrase of the day or something, and we try to see who can throw it out the most in one day.
There you go. That's you got to make it fun.
Yeah,
and that's for a lot of people is a need to know how to make this a fun thing. Because I tell people a lot of times when they start off, hey, you need to learn how to enjoy this and to laugh at your failures and to deal with some of these frustrating things. Because if it isn't fun, it could be downright miserable. You're going to be getting smashed. You're going to be other people's sweat's going to be on you, and people are going to be choking you. Going to be twisting your arms and throwing you around the mat. If you can enjoy that, it's going to be real hard to come back for week after week and month after month. You need to know how to make this an enjoyable process. Some people it comes naturally, some people it doesn't.
The way you're explaining that, Byron, you're going to get sweat in your mouth. You're going to have a guy sweat on you. You're going to get smashed. You're going to get your arm twisted. The whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I actually do this? Why do I do this? It doesn't sound fun, but it is fun, and I do agree that is a need to know. You need to know that you need to have fun. You're going to run into these situations. And if you're having fun, you're going to stick with it.
That's a little bit different of an item for this discussion. Byron, what do you think about off the mat things outside of jiu-jitsu but related to jiu-jitsu, as far as hydration, things you might do before class, working out outside of jiu-jitsu? Are there need-to-know things that people coming into jiu-jitsu need to learn early, and good to know things in that regard?
Yeah, but I don't think those are any big mystery. Yeah, you shouldn't walk in super dehydrated. You don't want to walk in with the burger from McDowell's. It's the Big Mick, and it's got 2 all beef patties and special sauce and stuff. But that's not what you want to eat right before you train. I think most people know that. But really, the big one is find a way to make it fun. Make a few friends in the class, and it'll be a lot easier. You need to know a few people's names, I guess, would be one thing. If you've been going to class and you haven't learned anybody's name for a little while, shake some hands and get your name out there and meet some people. This is a social thing. You can't get good at jiu-jitsu by yourself. You're gonna learn a lot from your teammates, and they're a big part of it, not just the main instructor. So I can't think of anything else, taking care of your gi and that sort of thing, and taking care of yourself and looking out for various things that might happen, ringworm like Gary mentioned and that sort of thing off the mat. But just if you could enjoy this, and you have the time and the money available, you'll get good at it in time. If it's not fun, you could do it for a year or so. After that, really, why would you do this if it's not enjoyable?
A lot of people do it, Byron, because it attracts chicks.
Yeah, right.
Chicks dig
it. Oh man, I failed to see that result as a younger man.
I wouldn't know. I've been old ever since I started this. The only thing I attract is flies.
And it does do that, I guess. Joe, do you have any off the mat things that you need to know that maybe we're forgetting about or missing?
No, I think that covers it pretty good. I was just wondering what your take on it was.
Yeah, I'm sure, given enough time, I'm sure you'd come up with a few, but I think that we've hit the big ones on that.
I really think, like right off the bat, you guys talked about hydration, and I think a lot of people don't understand how much hydration can really help you, especially if you make sure you're hydrated on the day you're going to roll, how much better you're going to feel. And I do think that is a big one. And myself, I was a person who never really paid attention to it. And I probably went years of really not paying attention to it and did not have the best time. And once I started trying to, I try to hydrate a little bit more on days I know I'm going to train. And it has made a difference in just the way I feel. And if I feel better, I definitely have a lot better chance of enjoying this and sticking with jiu-jitsu and learning. I'm definitely going to learn better when I'm feeling better. And so I just think that's going to help an individual perform to their best and learn the most.
One thing that I found interesting is we've had this conversation. We've talked about need to know things like keeping yourself safe, knowing how to tap and when to tap. Talked about gym etiquette. Talked about keeping it fun. Byron mentioned getting some contact information from some guys and making friends. What has occurred to me is you don't just know these things coming in the door, and learning them yourself can be a long and not necessarily enjoyable process, or somebody can help you learn these things. And it just kind of occurs to me the responsibility we have as more experienced jiu-jitsu guys that are in the gym to make sure the new guy comes in. We need to provide him with those contacts. We need to tell him how to get a hold of us, and we need to explain these things to them and make their learning curve steep and fast so they pick these things up quick and can get on with having fun.
Joe, that's a great point. And as your gym goes on, people are going to see you become the ambassador, and people are going to follow in your footsteps when you're not there and take care of the new person coming in. And I'm telling you, and I'm not just saying this because Byron's on the show, but Byron, you are the best person I've ever seen at welcoming and taking care of new people. And I saw it happen today. There was a new person who came in the gym, and I saw Byron over there working with him. Byron could have smashed this guy if he wanted to. Every time I looked over, Byron's showing him something. I even heard you talking about, use your legs are stronger, just explaining it in layman's terms. But Byron, you are very good at welcoming people, always going up to the new person who comes in. You always notice the guy who looks disoriented, doesn't look like he belongs there, and you'll always be over there, helping that person out, shaking that person's hand, working with that person. And I will attest to this. One of my training partners, who was brand new and never had trained in a gi before and really never trained anywhere but with me, went to a seminar and at a different place and, kind of out of his element. Byron happened to be there, and I told Byron to be on the lookout for him, but Byron would have done this anyhow. But Byron trained with him, and this was a guy who had been training about 6 months. And all he could tell me, like the next day at work, or I guess it was probably a Saturday, so it would have been Monday at work, was, man, you know how special I felt having a black belt there who took me under his wing and worked with me. And Byron, you did that to Blake, and I remember Blake telling me that story about how special he felt that you helped him out and made him feel comfortable.
Well, Joe, Gary, you know how special I felt about a week and a half ago when he triangled the crap out of me. Like, man, that guy's got a really good triangle joke.
But no, it was neat to just hear him that day. Just, he had a smile on his face when he was telling me about it, and it's something I'll never forget. But I see you do it for everybody. You didn't just do that because that was my buddy. You would have done that if that guy was just in the gym. You were always that ambassador for jiu-jitsu and trying to spread the art.
Well, thanks, Gary. I think you do that as well, and I think that we it's one thing to try to do this, but they're much like jiu-jitsu. Some of it's a skill, and so you might pick up little things of how to be welcoming from other people. And I've definitely learned some tricks and some style from Gary and some of the other guys around the gym as far as welcoming people in. The most simple one: if you don't recognize somebody, go ask them their name, shake their hand, introduce yourself, and ask them where they're from, ask them what brings them here. Just a couple of easy questions, just kind of get the ball rolling, and that's way better than watching them sit on the mat alone, waiting for class to start. And any of us could do that. You don't have to be a black belt to show somebody a couple extra minutes and say, I'm glad you're here today. And then at the end of the class, especially if they're new, I try to tell them the same thing. Like, hey man, it's good to have you on the mat today. Hopefully we get a chance to roll, but a lot of times there's a lot of people in class. I can't roll with everybody. So anyway, yeah, you need to know how to properly welcome people into jiu-jitsu, especially if you're going to be bringing your friends and you want them to have a good experience. Well, I think that kind of covers the main concept there. Everyone's game is different, and so I think I've experienced this somewhat when I've been trying to help my wife get better at jiu-jitsu. Does she need to know my game? No. Does she have like a strong representation of that in her game? Yeah. The guys Gary trains with, they all roll a lot like Gary, but they're all a little bit different too. And it's just because that influence is coming. You spend a lot of time with those guys. I spend a lot of time helping my wife get better, and she's going to have elements of my game probably more than it should be compared to the template of the average grappler at her level. That's okay, but does she need to have my game? No. Is there probably a better game that she could have? Yeah, probably, but she's got me to deal with, and she's working with the best she has. Yeah, I think that's... Anything else we want to add to this before we let it go?
Nope, that was a rousing discussion.
That's the word of the day.
Okay, I thought exponential was the word of the day, so now I don't know which word to use later on.
Arousing always is better than exponential.
That was exponentially rousing.
Rousing. There we go.
All right. Which I guess brings us to our article of the week. One of our favorites, Matt Thornton. He's got, you know what? Go to mattthornton.org. And that's cool right there because there's 3 T's in a row. The 2 T's of Matt and then the first T of Thornton. I don't know. That's always kind of like type them in right, get them all right. And then the article is 3 rules for rolling. He wrote this March 14th of this year. And I guess that's not really relevant because these are pretty much timeless. And we've had him on the show a couple times. Some of our best episodes. A lot of information from Matt. And he does address some common questions like how hard should I be rolling? What should I not do while I'm rolling? Kind of these basic things. And it's good to see something from his perspective, somebody who's been a black belt for so long. His rule number 1, never roll too rough. And he's talking about the cheap stuff, like grabbing hair, grabbing fingers, doing that sort of thing. It's not going to help you get better at jiu-jitsu. It's not going to help people want to get you better at jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, it doesn't really have to do it, and I like that he kind of makes this clear. It doesn't really have anything to do with the intensity level of the roll. If your opponent is willing and a game opponent, and you guys want to turn up the intensity to competition level, that's fine. But what you don't do is get sloppy, get desperate, and he talks about grabbing hair, grabbing individual fingers, those kind of things. You need to know not to do those, but it doesn't mean you can't roll hard.
Byron, I was going to ask you, remember the time a black belt came for a seminar and we were rolling with him and he thought you grabbed his fingers?
I'm sure I did. I was desperate, man. I was fighting hard. After being choked like 9 times in a matter of 2 minutes, I was in, I think it was a rear naked choke or something like that, and I'm reaching back behind my head. It's to that point to where I'm not wanting to tap. I mean, if I don't usually pull off, the grip off the back of the head. Usually I'm just done. But I'm reaching back there. I probably just grabbed a couple of his fingers and tried to pull, and he choked me. And then he goes, "Don't grab my fingers." And then I thought 9 times in 2 minutes was bad. It suddenly got worse.
I was afraid to watch after that. I just remember.
Children were asked to leave the room. It got so bad.
I just remember in his Brazilian accent, and I was just like, "Oh, Byron is done."
I was already getting destroyed.
Yeah. I just remember it's like I whispered real quick to you. I don't think you heard me, but I was like, "Byron, can I have your car when you pass?"
You didn't want my car. I didn't have any paint on it anyway. But yes, Gary, I'll put you down for the car.
Why, thank you,
Byron. Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's about respecting the person you roll with. And I think, in the example, I'm assuming I grabbed his finger. I was desperate. I was panicking. And so, I'm glad he told me that, don't grab my fingers. Like, otherwise I'd be like, why did I just make him mad? Because I didn't realize I had done that. People grab my fingers. I usually kind of shake them or move them. And if they don't let go, I'll say, hey, either grab them all or don't grab them at all. And it'll kind of explain that we are grappling here. We're going pretty hard, but I don't want you to just break my fingers. They're small bones. You can't do that in the UFC. We're certainly not going to be doing that here. And that's about all it takes, and they'll stop doing that. Usually it's either panic mode like I was in that example, or they don't know any better. Intentional, like you get a good wrestler comes in and starts controlling your fingers, that you need to talk about and get that addressed, because they won't go far. Like, no one's going to help that person. It's like Matt says.
Yeah, that was the best point, is that the result of this is no one will want to roll with you.
Yeah, and you're not going to get better at jiu-jitsu by yourself.
Yep.
So you get to walk around feeling like you're tough enough, nobody wants to roll with you, but in reality, you're just not getting any better at jiu-jitsu. Looking at the second rule, always roll honest. And this can mean a lot of different things, but don't look for ways to cheat and gain little advantages while you're rolling. If if I tell Gary, let's warm up, and sometimes I'll do this, and I've known Gary long enough that it's going to be a warm up for a couple minutes, a couple minutes of light rolling, a couple minutes of medium rolling, and within 8 or so minutes, we're rolling pretty hard, but we've both ramped up to that spot together. Sometimes I'll say, let's warm up with somebody I don't know so well, and I'll say probably about 5 minutes or so, we'll start going a little bit more. And really, before I choose to ramp it up, if I get to choose that, because they didn't already, I'll say, are you feeling like you're warmed up? Are you ready to start going a little bit faster? And usually, basically once you get a little sweaty, I feel like I'm warmed up. But that's one that's pretty common, is like act like you're going to roll light, or you're in warm-up mode, and you use the opportunity to get their back real quick and choke the crap out of them. Don't do that. It's not about winning. It's about getting better at jiu-jitsu.
Joe, I wonder if you have this issue that I have, since you're almost as old as me, but not as old as me. But what I find is I can't really just go from 0 to 100 right off the bat. I like to, I really watch who I roll with right off the bat. My first roll is so important to have a Byron or somebody like Joe to roll with that I know is going to treat me with respect and courtesy and allow me to get warmed up. But do you have that issue too, Joe, where you kind of pick who your first roll is that you'll know where you can warm up at the pace that you need to?
Perhaps when I'm as old as you, I'll have those things.
Hey, Joe, Gary has these pills for this that take care of it anyway. No warm-up period needed.
Ready to go.
0 to 100.
Well, maybe not 100.
Okay.
No, I would agree with you, Gary. And the reality is, I have good training partners. And if the first roll doesn't go the way it should, it's usually my fault. So I've got to make sure I stay, like you said, progressing, warming up a little bit at a time and not just go balls to the wall in the first 2 minutes of the match.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've had times where you were talking about earlier, Byron, I slap hands with somebody, and let's say it's my third or fourth match in, and it may be somebody I don't know, and boy, I've had some people come at me like I stole their lunch money, and it's never fun like that right off the bat. And so now I've always just tried to, like right off the bat, not go crazy with that person, but get some hooks, grab an underhook, grab a control position where I can see how that person, I can kind of test them out. I'm just trying to keep myself safe and have fun.
Yeah, like you stole their lunch money and you still have the cupcake. And they still want the cupcake. Another way that he mentions that people roll a little dishonest is coaching somebody while you roll. Gary's got a Kimura, and I'm pretty much done right now. But hey, Gary, pinch your knees a little bit tighter or change your grip like this a little bit. Then he got it. Nice. That was, Gary, sweet Kimura, man. You just remember to do those things and they'll always be better. That's not really that, it's not honest. I don't know if you're lying to yourself or them or at that point, because I feel like Gary knows when his Kimura is going to land. And I didn't escape it. I found a way to socially escape it, possibly. What I've been doing, and it's worked pretty well, is I'll have to change the example from Kimura because that's not going to happen. But let's say somebody has mount and they try an arm bar and I just get out. It really wasn't a very tight arm bar. I'll tell them, okay, rewind a little bit, get your mount back. And then I'll help them because I've already escaped it. They knew they had a problem with it. And I'll say, now when you do this, do the exact same thing. Go forward, and get to this point. Now, see the space, get rid of that space. And then they get to try it. And I'll still try to get out, or I may not try as hard. But it's escape first, and then invite the tool of, hey, let's rewind that and look at it real quick. Because that's something that you've trying to do and didn't work. And I think that's a good tool that I've stumbled upon as far as helping people, but not trying to help them submit me necessarily, because they might feel like I'm trying to get out of that. So I don't know.
That was, I believe, chapter 3 in Gary's audiobook, Never Tap Again.
Yeah,
when you see,
I remember that one.
when you see that the submission is a foregone conclusion, switch to coaching mode quickly.
Yeah, yep. That was. I got a lot of people really liked that chapter, so that was awesome. One thing I've been doing a lot here lately, and I don't know how Matt would feel about this, but it's probably not being honest. But let's say we're in a position, and let's just say I'm offensive, and I just can't get it, and me and let's say Byron are rolling, and let's say Joe did not show up that day. So I'm headhunting for Byron. Byron's in the turtle. I'm trying to choke him. It's not working. Then what I do is I let up a little bit, and I was like, hey, what's happening, Joe? And I stop for a second. I pretend like I look one way, and I kind of wave that way. And it always happens. This happens every time. It'll work for you. The guy on the bottom will put his head up and look for Joe just to say hi. And at that point, I pounce on him like a healthy cougar and finish the submission. I have been known to do that, and it works well.
Something tells me that would be considered to be not rolling honest.
Yeah, I think so. So definitely don't do that. That was chapter 4 of that book.
I like a point he made there about sandbagging. You know, a lot of guys will sit along the sidelines for the first few rolls. Some guys will just come in for the rolling portion of the class. And that's not necessarily wrong, but it's wrong if you just come in for the rolling portion of the class so that you can come in fresh and just tear everybody up.
I used to have this guy, and we used to have some good matches back and forth, and he would never roll. He would sit out the whole time, and I would roll with 3 or 4 rounds with guys like Byron, a guy we used to roll with, Big Red. I'd roll 2 rounds with him, roll a couple rounds with Byron. And this person would have been on the sidelines the whole time coaching everybody. He was that kind of person. And then he would always jump in and be like, okay, Gary, you ready to roll? And, man, he would always get me when I was ready to quit, when I was ready for the day. Like, he could just test that. And I always hated that. And I would always roll a little bit harder. I mean, it made me better just because I wanted to try to finish him, and I worked that hard. But, boy, I know he was doing that on purpose back in those days, and definitely not being honest with himself there.
I guess we're touching on rule number 3 that he has is don't just give up. And he mentions in this one a little further down is if you're the guy that's just watching, sitting on the wall, and then you jump in when you're tired, you're not being smart, you're being a jackass. Also, he talks about this one is if you go super hard for 3 minutes, you gas, and you want to quit, you realize that you just lost. Like you didn't judge the allocation of your energy wisely, and that's on you. You know, the fact that you went super hard for that long and didn't get results that you wanted. Just realize that. Don't pretend that you just got tired and had to stop. Realize that you're stopping because you wasted it. you threw 100% of what they had, and they stood there and didn't react to it by tapping, and you need to quit. So just learn how to, if that happens, you throw your first 100% in the first 3 minutes and you're tired, try to keep rolling. Okay, make a conscious effort. I'm going to have to slow down. I can't do this pace anymore. Yes, I'm going to do pretty poorly, but it's better than just quitting. And I think that's an interesting rule that you don't really see so much in the experienced players, but definitely at the beginning, you see people just quitting because they're tired and because they tried super hard for a few minutes.
Yeah, I have an interesting story about that. It's not really fair to your training partners when you do that. We had a kid come in the gym, I don't know, it's probably been 2 years ago now. And of course, he's not coming anymore, but we have class, and then we get to the rolling part, and I line up with him, and I'm like, so do you have any grappling experience before tonight? What's going on? He's like, well, I've done some backyard wrestling with my brothers and watch UFC, but I'm new to this. And so I'm like, all right, we'll just take it easy. We start from the knees, and he does like a jumping guillotine and just wraps my neck up, falls back into guard. He's just tearing at my neck, and I mean, it's miserable. And I'm just defending, and this goes on for about 3 minutes, and then he gasses out and he taps. And I let him get away with it that time. But then, like 2 nights later, it was the same thing, and he got top side control, and he's just mauling me. And so I reverse him, and I put him on the bottom, and he taps. And I let him catch a breath, but I told him, I'm not going to let you tap. You can't come at me. I'm twice your age. You can't come at me and try and maul drag me for 3 minutes, and then when you run out of energy, tap. So I gave him a pretty good 2 minutes of pressure lesson. And it's not fair to your opponents to do that.
Some lessons are in the hard way, I guess.
That would make a great mat tail.
Oh, Gary. I guess we could. It's been a little while, and I've been so busy I haven't been able to make new ones. But we'll air a throwback mat tail just for good times, my friends. Here we go.
This is Mat Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Mat Tales.
I am an ordinary grappler, but to my kids, when I put the gi on and head out the door, I'm Superman. And I remember looking up to my dad when I was a kid, thinking he was Superman. He could do anything. It gave me a great sense of security. It's not uncommon at my house for my kids to hear a noise in the basement or think they heard something outside. And I always go check that noise out. Just a couple weeks ago, my children were concerned about something being in the basement. Well, I do my normal routine for this. I change out of my clothes, put my gi on, grab the baseball bat, and get my dog Mort to come along with me. We head down to the basement and search around, making a little bit of noise, a little bit of rustle to provide excitement for the kids. I, of course, will arrive back upstairs, safe and sound, assuring my children that the house is safe and they could rest easy yet another night, thanks to their dad. Well, last Friday, the kids are up a little later than usual, and they were concerned about some noise or activity in the backyard. Well, time for this super dad to do his thing. I had changed into my gi. I got my trusty companion, Mortimer, and, of course, the baseball bat, headed out to the garage and told them to stay upstairs where it would be safe while I go outside and check it out. I enter the garage and open the door to the backyard and unleash my hound, Mort. He runs off and does his thing. I close the door, I put my baseball bat down, and open my refrigerator that I have in the garage. You see, it's been a long day. My kids are going wild. It is their bedtime. They're still up, and I'm playing these games. I pull a beer out of the fridge and have a seat. It's nice to have some quality time to yourself, enjoy a couple cold beers in the garage, and just get away for a little while. After my beer time was over, I retrieved Mort from the backyard, hid my beer cans in the trash, and went back inside, where I told the children that all was well, the backyard was clear of any trespassers or monsters that could be out there, and that it was safe, yet again, for them to go to bed and get a good night's sleep. Well, I was woken up at 6 a.m. by my children. This is unfortunately a common Saturday morning occurrence. My kids were demanding that I go back outside to check the backyard. I didn't bother with my gi. I had my shorts on, and I was still way too sleepy for these games. Upon looking out the window in my house, I noticed what appeared to be a young man, probably in high school, sleeping in my backyard. And somewhere in the night, this young man had lost all but his underwear. I probably should have checked the backyard a little better. My dog clearly did not do his job either. But it appears I was not drinking alone last night.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to BjjBrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
I'd like to mention our sponsor briefly here, Health IQ. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can go check it out. Health IQ is a life insurance company that is looking for people like us, people who enjoy fitness, people who are working out and have that lifestyle. You know what's going to happen is we're going to live a little bit longer than the average bear, and they're able to reward us for that with lower rates. Is a fairly simple concept. I don't know why more people aren't doing this, but they really hit the nail on the head with this idea. Find people that live healthy lifestyles and sell them life insurance at a lower rate. We shouldn't be in the same pool as everybody else who's living the lifestyle, the McDowell's lifestyle, and really putting their bodies through hardship and shortening their life expectancy. If you don't use tobacco, you work out several times a week, you're on the mats, getting a good jiu-jitsu time going on, you will probably qualify. You need to see if you do. There'll be a link in the show notes. Go take their little quiz, talk to an agent today, and see if they can help you out and save money on your life insurance. We all need to have it, and why not save some money?
Yeah, definitely. What a great company. If you take care of your body, they are going to take care of you by giving you a lower rates on your life insurance. So definitely check out Health IQ. Like Byron said, we have a link to it in show notes. Go to the link, get a quote, call them up, get a free quote. Definitely check it out.
Had a great time this week, and definitely want to mention and thank our Patreon supporters. Patreon is a website that is geared at helping people who make content like podcasts. If you think this show is something that adds value to you, if you enjoy it, if you learn something, if you want to help keep us going strong and really help us grow the show to even more than it is now, go to the link that we have on our show notes of Patreon and check out the little video there. The most common thing people will kick in $1 per episode. It's just a way to say thank you. I want to help you guys maintain what you're doing. And at the beginning of every month, your credit card or whatever is billed that $1 per episode, and that money goes and helps us maintain what we're doing. Now, we do a few things for you just as really tokens of appreciation, because we're not able to pay you back, after a little bit of time. That adds up, and it really helps us out. But we give you a 5-inch BJJBrick gi patch that you could wear on your gi if you like, or stitch it to your skin if that's your thing. We also have a sticker. It's a little easier to put that on your skin. I'll also send you the sticker. And if you sign up for the Patreon thing, find me on Facebook. Byron Jabara is my full name. I think there's still one of me on Facebook. And I'll add you to the private group. Make sure you tell us that you just signed up for Patreon, because I don't necessarily know that right away. And you'll be invited to the private Facebook group where we talk about kind of the behind the scenes of BJJBrick sometimes, and who we're interviewing next and what we should be asking them, and any sort of business. Sometimes business stuff comes up there, and it's kind of fun to get some opinions about other things. And you'll be in that group, and that is a small but mighty part of the brick wall.
You know what else you could do with your BJJBrick gi patches, guys?
Yeah.
You might be able to. I tried. I took my gi patch down to my local tattoo artist and asked him if he'd give me a chest piece. But he took a look at the gi patch, the two guys that were on it, and he said, I can't do this. I've got some standards.
Yeah, morally, it's just a bad play.
But yeah, I'd really like to thank our Patreon supporters. And there are other ways to support the show also. And what I want to do today is a little quick new segment. We have played Family Feud before, but we're going to have Family Feud Joe versus Byron. And so also, you guys, we know we don't have a buzzer, whoever just rings in first. But Joe, you ready? And Byron, you ready?
Yeah, I guess. Let's do this. This is okay. Gary's thrown this on us. Are you ready, Joe?
Yep.
This is impromptu.
Yep. Top 3 answers on the board. Name a way to support the BJJBrick Podcast besides Patreon.
I got disqualified.
Tell a friend.
Joe, that is number 3. Great job, Joe. Joe, do you want to play or pass?
I'll play.
Okay.
I got excited. I
so since you have nobody else on your team, Joe, what would your next answer be?
Share a link to the show on social media. We're on Facebook. We got a YouTube channel. Download the BJJBrick app so that you can get an episode every week and play that in your carpool on your way to and from work.
Good job, Joe. App was number 2.
All right.
Yep, Byron, I'm going to let you get in this game. What is number one? That's all we have left.
Don't use headphones. Play it out loud for all to hear.
Joe?
Buy Byron's audiobook. Your first
Ding,
year.
ding, 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 ding. Joe is the winner. So other ways to support the show. We have, Byron has 2 audiobooks, 6 games for BJJ in your first year of BJJ. Links to them in the show notes. Awesome books. Really, selling like hotcakes. Not McDonald's hotcakes, but McDonald's hotcakes. BJJBrick app, as Joe said. Share our stuff on social media. Share our podcast on Facebook. Let people know about us. But that was just something I just threw up out of the blue. These guys had no clue what was going on, but I thought it'd be a cool way to tell other ways to share and let it to support the show.
Gary, I gave you an A++ for creativity and delivery on that one. That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I wanted an exponentially A++.
Dang it.
A rousing exponentially A++. I didn't get it, so I tried.
Try it
but
again
that's
next
all
time.
that counts. I tried. I won't.
Have the growth mindset, Gary.
Yeah,
Next
I didn't
time.
just give up.
So this is the last episode of the month. Good news, we have a bonus episode, a BJJBrick Extra, coming at you shortly after this one is released. Joe, what do we have?
We have Sam Spiegelman, and it was an excellent interview. You might know Sam is big into strength and conditioning, but his purpose for strength and conditioning might surprise you a little bit. Very interesting. Make sure and tune in.
Yeah, and that'll air April 1st. So we're kind of piling up some episodes on you here in April. And
Byron, is that really truthful, or is that an April Fool's joke?
Ew. Oh. We should plan a joke on Gary next week, Joe.
Oh, what's new?
But you know what? Real quick before we close this out here, I've already listened to the episode with Sam. Really impressed with the interview and how things went and the information that was learned back and forth there. But I was just super impressed by Joe's ability to interview somebody like he's been doing it for years, and some of the questions he asked, and I could tell he's got really good listening skills. I was very impressed, Joe. You did a great job, and happy to air this episode on the 1st.
Well, I am interested in doing interviews, and so I wanted to learn from the best. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but I have listened to Byron do a lot of episodes, so that's the next best thing.
If Gary could do some more, and then you can listen to Gary, and then there you go. That's the best.
One thing I've noticed about Joe since he started doing interviews is he's got exponentially better. Great job, Joe.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll catch you guys next week. Good times. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Don't eat at McDowell's. It's bad for you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
All right, my friends, we referenced the movie Coming to America, the 1988 classic movie. And so I thought I would break down this scene for you, which we referenced a couple of times, which has our heroes played by Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. Also, the villain is Samuel Jackson. If you want to find this clip, type in Unhappy Meal Coming to America on YouTube. It pops right up. We are in our McDowell's restaurant. Our 2 workers, Gary, who is played by Eddie Murphy, and Joe, who's played by Arsenio Hall, are at work when Samuel Jackson storms in to rob the place. He just fires his gun into the ceiling.
Everybody shut up and do like I say. Get the money out.
Everybody in the restaurant drops to the ground for cover, obeying commands.
Stay cool. Nobody
Joe stands
gets
behind the
hurt.
counter, cool and
Take
collected.
the money out. All of it. Don't stall me, fat boy. Let's go. Come on.
Gary
Wasting
takes
my
a
time now.
nice
Come
look
on.
into the woman he's courting's
Come on.
eyes,
Anybody
and
move
then
out,
diverts his
blow your
attention back
head off.
to Samuel
What
Jackson.
are you looking at, buddy?
The guy behind the counter, I guess he's probably
Come
playing me,
Stop stalling.
starts putting money into a bag.
Come on.
It's getting more intense as Samuel
Don't stall
Jackson
me.
is
All of
impatient by my slow actions of filling the bag up with money. About this point, Gary has had just about enough of this.
Come on!
He reaches down, picks up a mop, and unscrews the handle from the mop head. Joe spots Gary making a move. Gary politely excuses himself from the conversation he was having with this lovely woman and approaches Samuel Jackson, shotgun in hand, versus Gary's mop stick.
It would be wise for you to put the weapon down.
Who the f*** is this asshole?
Gary stands politely with mop stick in front of him.
Please refrain from using any further obscenities in the presence of these people.
What?
I've warned you. I'll be forced to thrash you.
F*** you.
Gary hits the shotgun with the mop head, and it goes flying in the air. Joe hops over the counter. Then Gary takes the mop and smacks him in the leg, knocking him to the ground. The gun falls by Joe's feet. Joe picks it up. Samuel Jackson, who I'm now realizing we should have gave a name to, other than Samuel Jackson, pulls a knife out. As Joe points the gun at Samuel, he tells him to freeze.
Freeze, you diseased rhinoceros pizzle.
He then lays his head back down and gives up. That wraps up that scene. I didn't mention the gentleman playing my role was Louis Anderson, kind of a out-of-place guy in the scene. There we go. Hope you had fun listening to this little breakdown of the movie. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. Total classic.